Hey everyone, and welcome to Broken by Concept episode 89. Hope you're having you had a lovely weekend.
The question that we always ask Curtis on the Broken by Concept podcast: how can we become better solo queue players?
That's correct.
That's what we're going to explore today.
That's correct. And so, to be completely transparent, I don't want to go too much on this, but I had a back injury, right? It's 3 weeks I've been out from the gym. I went to the gym for the first time today with you in 3 weeks. And one of the things I tried to take away, I try to take away something from every negative experience, no matter what the experience is. Try to have one learning, one key learning.
Look for the, what's the saying?
Look for the, I know there's a saying, I don't know what it is.
You guys got to fill the gaps. It's like school, fill the gap.
And it just made me realize how important working out is.
Exercising.
From a mental health perspective. My entire mental state over the past 3 weeks deteriorated massively.
Because you're this injury, no gym.
No gym. It's the breaking up of the schedule. It's the literally my routine going to shit completely. My energy levels going to shit. Because I'm just not working out. You just feel way more lethargic. You can't eat as much. So then you start losing weight. You don't sleep as well because you're not burning any of your energy. It was a disaster. It actually was an absolute disaster. So, given that I haven't been working out, I've been able to spend more time thinking, I guess, about the SoloQ experience for everyone and kind of observing and locking myself in my dungeon.
So Curtis has been sitting there for the last 3 weeks, just sitting there writing for SoloQ philosophies in like this.
I've been a bit more observant than usual.
Yeah.
Because I've had more time in the day.
More time, that's right, to think rather than busting your balls in the gym.
That's right.
And if I don't go, dude, gym is just...
it's huge.
It's so, like, we just harp on it. People are just, like, sick of it, dude, honestly.
No,
but it's
because
good.
because we came from...
No gym.
Yeah, we were both...
Anti-gym.
And we didn't go to the gym from 18, 19, 20, 21,
because we had all these narratives.
We had all these narratives.
We're the skinny guys.
And that you don't need it, really. Like, you create every reason in the book why you don't need to go.
Yeah.
You need to do exercise. You need to do exercise. We're going to repeat that. It's not even the physical part. I mean, the physical part is very important, but it's the mental part. It's mental. It helps you get your mind sorted.
The philosophy that I just have that I've learned from gym is just when I do something hard, everything else becomes easier.
I like that, yeah.
You know, your body just feels like it rewards you. That's the thing. Like, I go to gym, I'm like pushing myself on, like, you know, my last couple of reps for the set. And my body's just like, great job, Nathan. You're going to just get rewarded with energy throughout the day.
Yeah, how weird is that? You get energy for expending energy.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have made sense to me when I was younger.
I love the human body, dude.
Fascinating.
Yeah, you'd think that like...
You would think that you'd be more tired, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm the opposite. If I sit in my chair all day, dude, I feel like a...
Yeah, I'm done by midday.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Finished. Pack it in.
All right. So I read a comment a while ago. I think it was like last week from Super Beast in my MLA saying something along the lines of, Curtis, have you ever considered differing review processes? Now, to clarify, right, the mantra or the
stock standard
process that we
talk about
a lot is the 3 block. You do a little bit of a warm up. You play, you review, you play, you review, you play, you review.
Play one game, straight after.
Then review straight after.
Yeah.
That's the process that we've really been pushing. That's the narrative we've been pushing because and let's clarify what the advantages, what we believe the advantages are. What are they, Nathan? The advantages of this process of 3 block game review.
Let's say I have a bad game or a game where like you really weren't sure what happened, or you start to like blame your teammates in the mid, especially when it gets to like the mid-late game. Like, it's way easier, like teammates' mistakes like matter a bit more. For me, when I go back and I just look at the other game, I'm like, oh, it makes sense.
Yep.
So that's just what just nails it for me. It's like, you know, this wouldn't have happened for this and this and this, because league, as we know, is a snowball effect. So if I'm able to look at the review, I go back to the beginning, I was like, okay, this game makes sense. It's like a de-tilting process, because then you realize that the game's all on you. Okay. It's very easy to get caught up in your teammates' mistakes.
So you're saying that you can see how you contributed to the game.
Correct, yeah.
And what you could have done.
In a more objective way. because you can just look at your gameplay. I mean, you know, it's unbelievable when you look at your gameplay. You don't realize how bad your gameplay looks like sometimes. That's
Totally.
the thing, and that's what reviewing just opens it up. I actually I tuned into Claire's stream actually, and he was reviewing a game, and he was watching it back, and he literally said the same thing. He said, I can't believe how bad this looks. Like, I didn't even realize how bad this looks. And he said, like, what he did was he was like, the wave was in a pretty bad state. And he's like, why am I just not hitting the wave? And he went to go ward, and he knew the enemy jungler started that side. So there's no way there's a gank anyway.
Yeah, you don't realize.
And it just looks horrendous. And then he's like, alarm bell should be ringing right now of how, you know, like in this game, like right now. This is just his first couple, his lane phase, you know. I thought that was funny because that's
yeah,
what
you don't
really
realize
does.
until you look at it after how bad it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think so. There's the fact that we call it's the medicine, right? It allows you to detail, see how you've contributed to the game, etc. I think it allows you to complete what we call the learning cycle, right? Where you do something, and then you execute.
Yep.
And then you can look at it, see what happened, observe it, and then execute again. It allows you to kind of complete that learning cycle.
It helps me focus on something for the next game. Again, let's say if my learning objective or overall is looking at lanes, F keys. I just look, and then I'm like, okay, I need to be doing it. It just gets me more even focus into the learning objective, because League, it's very easy to get pulled different directions. You know, because maybe some mistakes pop up that like is in the separate learn objective, but I'm like, you know, I'm just not going to work on that so far, you know, because it's a long game. We played the long game.
Okay. Yep. So these are just a few of the advantages. There's probably others. I mean, I might say another one as well. It's just it makes sense as well. Like, it's just a very streamlined process, and the review in between gives you a break in a way. It gives you a break in between the games itself. It's kind of like a refreshing little. It's like a refresher in a way. It's like a half time in a way. So, all right, take a breather. Okay, I can do something else rather than just jumping straight into the game again. Because a lot of people want to just queue up again instantly. If they're you know, on one of the more populated servers, they're going to get an instant queue pop essentially.
Yeah.
So you can go game, and you can probably get 3 games in like an hour and a half theoretically if you have an insta pops. So okay, there's a few of the reasons. Now, I actually want to talk about some of the negatives, though. Some of the potential dangers and pitfalls of this process. I think one of which is, I think sometimes it's very easy, like you said, to get caught up in like the noise. So let's just say you play and you had a rough game where maybe, like you just had, say you're a mid laner and you have 2 losing sides. It was like a really hard game. And you go into the review, you lose it inevitably. Not saying you played perfectly, but you lose. It was a really, really hard game. And you're like really trying to get the most value from the review
trying
process.
to figure out the game, but it's like, it's just sometimes it's not worth it.
Yeah, it's sometimes like it's out of your control.
Yeah.
And like sometimes that process of you're trying to overanalyze, you get caught up in overanalyzing the game. And then you start to then look at things that aren't really necessary for you. Like, it's easy to forget that you would win this game in an alternate reality if you just had one of the people in your team that were quite competent. It could just be a 30% loss, right? So, and there are moments where I think that just in general, unlucky things happen, but because you're caught up in like the intensity of like, I just lost this game, I really want to know what happened, I feel like you're easily swayed. You're more emotional, I would say, because it's just happened. It's still raw. Like, what just happened is raw, that you just still saw that defeat screen, or you saw the victory screen and you feel like everything's all good, sunshine and rainbows, right? So it goes both ways. I would say that's one very real pitfall of this process. I would say another one is sometimes I would say it feels like, because you're not able to be objective about the review, even if you're looking for specific learning objectives, again, because there's the emotional aspect of it, you're not actually able to get them. You're not able to see what's happening objectively, regardless. Like, let's say your learning objective is, you're trying to work on your team fight positioning. You kind of go to that team fight and you're like, oh yeah, that's kind of good enough. You're not going to pay attention to detail and really play devil's advocate, especially if you lost that game and you played well up until that point. You're not going to really, I mean, I'm not saying for everyone, this is a bit of an overgeneralization, but for a lot of people, it's hard to take a mass amount of responsibility, like you were saying, when they're emotionally charged.
I mean, I always had the problem with that of some of my games, right? Again, I take so much responsibility for my games. Then that will affect my confidence for the next game. Because I'm like, okay, I have to play perfectly early game. If I don't, I got that problem that I've always had where I just check out if I don't play perfectly early game because, I have to be the one that wins the game for my team.
Right. So that's another potential pitfall as well. So it got me thinking, Nathan, it got, and so one last thing is that sometimes it feels like you've got momentum as well, and you just want to get the games in. It's like, it's just noise. I just want to go into the next game. Sometimes it feels like that. You have there's like an intuition that's telling you, let's just look at this later. I just need to get the games in. So this all got me thinking. And Super Beast, he said, Curtis, have you ever tried reviewing after the blocks or something like that? He said something along the lines.
3 games after.
Yeah. So I actually, and then reminded me, I got a DM from someone. I don't know who his name was. Can't remember, but it said something along the lines of how he's been having more success by reviewing all of his games at the start of the next block. So this is how this process goes. Hear me out. So okay, so let's say you've never done this before. So the way it would work is that you would play. You'd ideally still take a 2-minute break, get water, get a snack, get out of your chair, move around, stretch, play. But you're essentially just playing, stretching, playing, like basically 3 games in a row, essentially, with very small breaks in between. Now, I will add on something later on that we can add in here, but let's say this is that. You don't even review after the block. Leave it. No reviews, essentially.
You step away.
Step away, done. 3 block, done.
Wow. Okay.
Then what you do is that you review all 3 games before the next one. So let's say you're ready, you're about to do your 3 block, allocate 20 minutes at the start of that block, before the block, and you review all 3. Now, the reason I think this is actually quite genius is because, number one, it allows you to zoom out and actually distinguish between noise and signal much more effectively because you're able to now see all 3 games and the mistakes that are prevalent between all 3, as well as see the things that are done well between all 3. You're also way less emotionally charged. When you look at your gameplay from the next day or the next day, you're less emotionally attached to what happened. Like, you just want to look at what happened. Like, you don't really care about, like, the heat's gone. The emotions are gone. Most of it, anyway, it is gone. So you're able to see
It's completely gone. I would say for me, if I start a new day, like...
Right.
Unless my overall SoloQ journey for the last, like, couple of weeks is just beating me down.
Yeah.
But I mean, right now I'm not in that stage, and I feel like that with the 3 block process is hard to get into that because you can't have massive gains and losses.
So you'd be pretty objective, right? If you were to look at your gameplay the next day, right? And I would also say as well, it's a great pre-game warm-up. You get to really left off where you were. It's like a bookmark. It's like, okay, this is actually how I was thinking in these games. This is what was happening. Like, it really gets you back into place. Like, it gets you back into, like, kind of where you left off in a way. And then, go through that process. And it made me think, this makes a lot of sense. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it makes a lot of sense. I want you to break this. What are your immediate thoughts? What come to mind?
I'm agitated. I'm agitated because I will sit there and ponder a lot about my games. Like, I replay the games in my head and situations in my head, and I'm just scared that if I was to do that again, I'm not having the complete picture because you're going to miss things in your games. Like, it's like, let's say if I'm replaying a situation in my head, I'm like a skirmish and like, I didn't realize that I should have waited.
Well, when are we replaying this? When?
In my head?
Yeah, like when are we talking?
Like literally straight after the games, I'll be thinking about them.
Yep.
Especially if they're losses. Like I'm really like fucking trying to figure it out, right? I'll be replaying, like, let's say I'm replaying a skirmish in my head, right? Mm-hmm. And in my mind, the mid laner was like closer than I thought. And I should have waited an extra 2. If I actually looked at the review, I would see that he's still like 2 seconds behind because he needs to push that wave. And, every second counts for that sort of stuff, right?
Yep.
I would miss that. And what if I'm pondering on that? And then I'll just be like, come up with some weird ass narrative from that,
Okay.
That's my initial reaction.
Yep.
Like, I'll have this because I find as well, especially some in SoloQ and stuff, people will like type straight after the game and they say like one thing happened and then you get into the review and just something else happened. And,
or that wasn't even true.
And it's one of my pet peeves. Like, I hate it. The moment someone says like something happened like in their game, I'm like, just fucking like actually look at it. Don't think about how you see it in your head, because there's 5 players in the game, or 4 other players. They have their own perspective, and a huge part of my approach to the game is putting myself in the shoes of my team and laners and the enemy team as well, right? And I feel like that I'll miss the my team part more heavily, and then I'll just get agitated because I need to fucking figure it out. Like, let's say if I follow that process.
Okay.
My initial reaction then is like, maybe again, this is too fairyland, too unrealistic. It's like you watch it after and then you watch it again twice over.
Yeah, so the adaptation I think that I would add on this is, in that between the games, you do an incredibly short review.
Yeah.
You go over like the core 2, like the 2 things that you like that you felt like you need to address. Like 2 things, like you said, that one play at the river where you want to see what actually happened.
Okay, yeah.
So you go over like, we're talking like a 2-minute review, a 2-minute just observing what happened to get the real picture, right? But you don't overanalyze it. You're not actually doing an in-depth review. All you're doing is looking at the core 2-3 things that happened.
So you're talking about things that are on your mind.
Yeah, things that are actively on your mind that you're really curious about. Like, what the hell just happened there? Well, how did we lose that game? Like, I had one of them yesterday. I'm like, oh, okay, that actually makes sense. Like, you have those moments, right? But the intention isn't to really do a proper review. It's more just to kind of get that shit out of your head.
Got it.
And then get that out of the way.
So then now you're structuring reviews now. So like, I just thought a review's a review, and I just have my review process I always do. And my reviews are really quick. I don't know what other people's reviews are like. I mean, obviously I'm experienced. I know what I'm looking for.
We can't extrapolate our review process to everyone else.
Okay.
Because again, people don't know what is happening in the game.
So then what I'm thinking there is like, I have like just looking at the immediate ones, and then I'll be looking at more so the... All right, well, let's say in terms of what I'm working on, in terms of like mid-game, right? So it's like, I'll be looking at some mid-game things, and then straight after the games, and then the next day, I'll be going back to my normal review process, which is like all early game stuff.
Okay.
Maybe that's something I could try.
that could potentially work.
But I do really like getting into the frame of mind of League. Like, don't you feel sometimes it's weird when you finish your day? Well, I guess it's a bit different for us because we're thinking about League and we're reviewing, because we usually do like a review session into lunch, into 3 block, right? Getting yourself into the frame of mind of the problems that you're going to encounter throughout the day by looking at your gameplay beforehand, sort of just getting into...
Because I mean, you like it.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's really important. I mean, I love visualization. Like, I'm like literally... Like, I'm like, last night in the morning, walking to the gym, I'm visualizing the challenges that I'm going to face in today's games already. You know, like thinking about, okay, adapt into my laners that have like a poor recall, and like I wanted to make a play, but now I can't make a play. And just being decisive and just going to the other side of the map or recalling with them or something like that. Like, I'm thinking about these things that I'm ready to do in the game the moment that happen. Like, again, challenges, not like easy things. Not like I'm just going to shit on the enemy jungler. It's more like specific... challenges. And I feel like if I also look at the games from the yesterday, it's like really fresh, looking at my problems and just getting to me that frame of mind.
Yeah, I totally agree. It gets you in a certain mindset. That's the biggest thing. It gets you into what you felt like in those games, because there's a feeling you get when, like, sometimes it feels like when you end a block, you're like, if only I knew now what I knew, you know?
Yeah,
like that feeling. But you can capture that at the start of your next block. Now I know that it's in my mind fresh, and now I'm ready to go. Because oftentimes, I don't know if you felt this, Nathan, sometimes it feels like when I play a block, I'm like, fuck, I learned this yesterday. Have you ever had that? Like, have you had that feeling where you're like...
I have the biggest one I have. Oh, I'm getting angry thinking about it. I smashed my desk last week, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, I was that pissed off at myself.
Wow.
I had 3 games in a row. Flawless early game.
Yep.
Awesome. What was it? We got Baron. I think it literally happened like 2 games in a row, right? We got Baron. We, we're setting it up. And you know how like people like overstay on Baron? People get cocky when they're ahead and they overstay on Baron
all the time.
and stuff. And then like I went for a fight that was a numbers disadvantage, but my teammates were fed. Like, it's sort of a fight you like... You
just got to take.
You got to go.
You just got to go.
It looks bad though.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was like at Aphelios. I remember one specific was at Aphelios, right? And I we had Baron, you know, the fight was looking good. And then I sort of like overextend and like make the aggressive play.
Yeah, I made that exact play yesterday.
And
I should've won a
then,
game
and
off
then
of it,
fucking, then the snowball starts happening.
Yep.
And we all die.
And everyone dies.
And then, you know, and then we just lose it. And that happened like twice back to back, dude.
Oh.
And the second one, I smashed my desk. Literally like that. I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
I was so pissed off because I did it twice.
And then did you
Did
you
I
lose
was
the
like,
third game?
the third game of that block, I actually can't. I
Did you
don't
make
think
a
I did. No,
refresh?
I haven't gone 0-3 in a long time
Okay.
recently. So, I was just so angry. Sometimes I play better when I'm angry the next game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that mistake. Like, but again, it's sort of like, yeah, I just need to just sit back and just not fucking take the fight because I feel like, because you know when you feel like you have to do something in a fight when a fight's breaking out.
Right. So everything you're describing right now, you want to capture that before the next block, though.
Yeah, you would.
Like you want to capture that fire in a way.
It pops up every couple of weeks, dude. Sometimes it's fine, and then it just fucking happens randomly back to back.
Okay,
dude.
so look, let's tie it back to the review process.
Yeah.
Like these are great and they're great learnings, but you want to. What you're talking about here is like more of like a frame of mind, isn't it? Like you're on point. Like you're thinking to yourself, okay, I'm going to be so on point next game. Like I got to make sure that
I'm going to be disciplined in closing out this game. I'm
Right.
only going to take high.
But imagine if you
plays.
reviewed those two games before your next block. It's going to help, right? I'm not saying it's going to change everything, but it's going to help. At least what I think.
it will. Yeah.
So
I mean, those experiences specifically, they're really ingrained. And the other one is that one at the beginning of the season I talked about, where I went through a bard. So the bard
portal.
altered. So the bard portaled, and I altered after him, and then went in and died. And then that was when I went onto that tilt spree.
Yeah.
Like I won't forget that. It's literally
Right.
gonna. I'll be like 80 years old and think about that because that threw off like weeks of my season. You know, that one play.
Right.
So those are painful experiences that are really ingrained, but I'd say overall for the average games and stuff, I should be.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I'm going to try this out. Yeah.
So, look, I'm trying it at the moment. And again, with a process, you're not going to be able to get the findings or how good it is until you've been doing it for weeks or months, potentially. So I'm going to try it out. I'm still doing reviews in between games because my queue times are so long.
That's right. Yeah. What are you doing?
Like, I'm still doing my reviews.
Low dodge game as well.
Well, yeah, that, but like I'm still mainly just doing reviews and like looking at my games and then just chilling. But I think that I'm going to do the reviews before as well as a calibration to kind of be, okay, this is how I was thinking.
Yeah.
This is like what my learning objectives are and why that's the case. And just like get in the right frame of mind. And I think for the average player, because I think, again, our reviews are they're very unique for the average player. We kind of know what we're looking for and how to look for it. For the average player, though, if they have a learning objective, it's going to make it much more streamlined. It's like, this is what it looks like. Okay, if say they're working on their jungle tracking, you can see specifically, go to each of those 3 vaults. How is my jungle tracking? Was I aware of this? If it's a mid laner and they're working on like their warding and leaning, how was my warding and leaning in these 3 games? And if they die because they weren't warding and leaning, they can capture that feeling, boom, right here. And then you haven't even played your game yet. Like, you're actively thinking about that. So I think for the average player, they should still review, though, in between games very quickly. The core 2 or 3 things they're genuinely confused about, and then otherwise do the rest of it the next day. Again, it's an adaptation of the process. It's a process. You're still doing the reviews. I just think it might be a level up. It might be a level up. The only downside, and this is, I've got a critique on this one, which is interesting, that think about, theoretically, you're not completing the learning cycle, but a part of me thinks your level of play in a block is your level of play.
It is your level of
like,
play,
you're not going to get better.
No, you don't randomly get better.
You don't randomly get better in a game.
It's like you don't randomly get better the next game.
No.
Maybe it's like, would you say more focused? Like, I would say that I've definitely had situations where I play my first game and then I'm like, all right, I got to wake up. And then I guess then I'm getting to my level.
That's more of an
I'm
intensity.
playing low or lower than my level.
Yeah, that's lower than your level, and then you're playing at your level.
Yeah.
But I think like your level of play is your level of play heading into that block.
Yeah.
And throughout
across
block,
the 3 games.
Across the 3 games. That's your level of play. So a part of me feels like reviews in between the games.
It's not going to magically change anything.
It's
true.
It's more of a long-term process. So you might as well just do it before. Now, the other one is like doing it all after. But I feel like doing reviews after, again, you're still so emotionally charged and you're so mentally drained. I think by that point, who's going to have the motivation to review all of their games at the end of a block and have the energy and like the mental resilience to do that? I think it's too theoretical. I don't think people could be able to do that anyway.
Yeah.
And plus I don't like it because then all your learnings, it's just, there's nothing after it, you know? You need something after it, I feel like. So again, I'd like people to play around with that. If they feel as though the current process isn't working for them, give this one a go. And would love to hear feedback over the next few weeks if people have tried it, because it's an interesting one.
I mean, in general, for learning objectives, it's better to look at a larger sample size than one game.
That's right.
Because you could literally be like, I'm looking, this is my learning objective, and you don't really see any of it in the first game. You just go to the next game.
Yep.
Okay, cool, third game, and then I'll.
Yeah, it could be the second and third game it becomes apparent, or maybe the other way around. The first game, but not the second game. Then you get thrown off. Totally spot on. Now, I would love to hear if you had the same experience with your SoloQ members.
Okay.
Okay, let's walk through. I'm going to walk you through a scenario here. Have a review with Jimmy here. Goal 1 jungler. You give him a learning objective after the review, right? You say, Jimmy, you got to work on jungle tracking. Boom. Now, Jimmy goes off and he focuses on this learning objective. 2 weeks later, or week and a half, whatever it might be, he comes back to you and Jimmy says, Nathan, I feel like, okay, I know how to do this, but I feel like I've got worse in other areas. Have you had that? Have you had someone come back, you set them a learning objective, 2 weeks later, they're good at that one thing, but they said, I just don't feel good in other areas. I feel like I'm playing worse. Have you had that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
All right. Great. So what I think actually happens is that, and we spoke about this before, we spoke about how someone has a learning objective, they work on it, it comes at the expense, their mental stat gets overwhelmed, and they get worse in other areas. But what we say a lot of the time, and I think I've made this mistake, we go, okay, great, you've done this learning objective. Now I'm going to set you another learning objective. So you set them another learning objective to get them focused on another area. Then their confidence gets even worse. Because what happens is the same thing happens. They get worse in their fundamentals. Their other fundamentals get worse. What I've realized is that you actually should never go from specific learning objective to specific learning objective. This is why. What you should actually do, you set a learning objective, a specific thing, something that you're uncomfortable with. Like you said, jungle tracking, F keys, whatever it might be, right? Then what you do after that has become somewhat muscle memory. You actually go back and you actually just work on the basic fundamentals again. You actually go back and revisit just the basic fundamentals.
The things you're working
on.
The
things that you worked on just before that. You go back and you just refine all the basics again. So say you're a mid laner and you're working on your mid game team fighting and your side laning and catching farm and stuff like that. Then what you do before you jump onto another learning objective, major learning objective, you just go back to like warding, leaning, just not dying in the first, like just basic jungle tracking, like just the basics of like the first 8 minutes. And you default to that every single time. Learning objective, first 8 minutes. Learning objective, first 8 minutes. You just go through that again and again and again. Because that way, you won't get caught up in the toxic cycle of then, because you get complacent in your fundamentals. The longer you don't focus on your fundamentals, the harder your process will be. And I've noticed that in myself. I had learning objective focused on some other stuff. And now I'm just doing just basics, just not dying in the first 8 minutes, essentially. Just basic jungle tracking, basic threat assessment. And then once I get that's up to scratch, boom, move it on to a little bit, maybe something a bit more specific. And then go back, and then go back, and then go back. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean you're a bad player. That's very normal. That's very normal. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's really important to emphasize that we still ourselves work on fundamentals, and the fundamentals is how... Because people might think about, they're telling me to learn the basics. That's like I'm a beginner, I'm gold or something. No. The basics and the fundamentals is what the highest level players do consistently. And that's what all the game is about.
And you have to have that consistently.
There's nothing sexy.
And that will always go down. You'll get worse at fundamentals. We spoke about this before.
That's why there is so many high elo challenger players that end up going way back down, because they lose complete respect of the fundamentals.
Yep.
I have someone I won't name who's a high level content creator who used to be challenger player, who reached out to me, and he was talking about all these narratives, all this stuff that he was talking about, and he messaged me, and And then I looked at his gameplay because, every time someone says something to me, I always take it with a grain of salt because I really don't care what you're talking about until I look at your gameplay because you're so biased. And I watched his gameplay and there is zero basics there in terms of just looking at lanes, tracking the enemy jungler, and it's literally... And then now he's Diamond 4. He used to be Challenger. This is exactly what Diamond 4 player looks like nowadays, and it makes complete sense, and there is no way he will climb higher unless he goes back and respects the goddamn fundamentals.
And I love that quote. It's always like, everything makes sense, and if it doesn't make sense, it's just your view of reality. It's just that.
His view of reality is completely distorted.
Yep.
And that's especially because... Yeah, the people that have been playing the game the longest and were high elo before, those players
their fundamentals are
very difficult. Yeah, well, they never really broke down the fundamentals,
and their ego is too large. It's so hard for them to focus on the fundamentals. Yeah. And so there's no shame in it. You're spot on, Nathan. There is no shame in just going back and just not dying. Like, that's something I tell people. You just got to now focus on just basic, understand where the jungle's clearing, first clear. Warding, leaning, good resets, good CSing, just that. That's it.
I mean, look at that example of Claire. And people don't know Claire is. He's like an OG OS play. He's currently top 10, I think, on the server. And he's literally flaming his gameplay because he saw the enemy jungler start blue. He's on the blue side. He's playing top lane. And for some reason, he's warding. And it's not a chance that's going to level 3 gank him, And it's crazy. This is a 1,000 top 10 player on a server.
He's been really high for a long time.
He's a great player. He fucks up the basics randomly,
It's so easy to slip up.
It is. And that's the thing that I love about League. And it just don't... Yeah. So I really like that you just keep going back.
Just keep going back. It's back. You're always going to
go
back.
Polishing.
Yeah. You're always going to go back.
Because the game is... You're not static. You will get worse.
You're only as good as your last
That's
game.
right. Yeah.
That is it. I want to talk about Daniel. So Daniel came in for a review this morning, and so Daniel's in the MA. He's in the book club as well. You know him. You know Daniel. You know when you saw him. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah. I forget real first name.
So he's been really struggling in SoloQ. His goal was D4. He finished plat. I think it was mid plat last season or something, and now he's in goal 1, right? And we did a review this morning. His confidence is at an all-time low. It's at an all-time low, and he wanted me to see kind of what was going wrong and where he's at. And we look at his game. He's playing Zed, and his narrative is that
I love a good narrative. Give it to me. Give it to me.
I'm worried that I would be fascinated to see how many people have this sort of narrative. So in his mind, he believes he has to play a quote-unquote great game. That's his expectation. He's going to play a great game every game. So what I asked him, I'm like, what is a great game to you? What is a great game?
What's your definition
of a great game? And he said, and we came to the conclusion that in his mind, a great game is 0 deaths, perfect tracking of everyone, basically flawless execution in lane, all these things. And I said to him, dude, at your level, you're going to play a great game in your mind 1 in every 20 games, probably. 1 in every 20. And that's probably because you're versing a low threat comp and the enemy's just bad. And then you just, you had an easy lane matchup that you understand. It's probably one of those scenarios. So in your mind, you're expecting yourself to play like a challenger level player in every game. That is completely ludicrous. You're never going to play. You're going to play like this 1 every 20, 25 games. Now, if that's his expectation to play like this every game, what happens? You become extremely fragile because you make one mistake, you're done, mentally checked out. Boom.
That was me.
You died. He died to a support room that even I would probably die to. It's I'm just so, he shits on himself mentally. I'm so bad, game's over type thing.
Yep.
And he continues to play. And every little mistake he makes, he shits on himself, which makes his confidence go down even lower, and he just progressively plays worse throughout the entire game until he loses.
Me and Daniel get along, dude. That was me last season.
I literally said that was you. I said, Nathan was identical. He focused on the early game. He made one mistake, and he wouldn't continue to play to win.
You said you hated playing with me because when I made a mistake, I was checked out.
Yeah, you're not going to play the game to win anymore.
No.
And I told Daniel, I said, dude, you got to shift your narrative here. You got to now go into every game saying, okay, I'm going to make mistakes. It's inevitable. It's going to be messy. I'm not going to play perfect League of Legends every single game. A great game for you should be you're playing in accordance to your champ's identity. You're, maybe whatever your learning objective is, something that's reasonable at your level of play. And now I'm not saying you need to make excuses for yourself when you make mistakes. You still got to take responsibility, because he asked me this. He said, Curtis, how do I take responsibility for these mistakes but still not get complacent, Well, I said, again, it all ties down to expectations. You can't expect that you're going to play this, you're going to have beautiful support tracking, jungle tracking, beautiful execution and team fights, calling off every objective. Dude, if you were doing all of that, you would be at Master Tier already. You're at Goal 1 at the moment.
I mean, he'll be higher than Master, he'll be Challenger.
You're even Challenger.
Yeah, the expectation is
What is a great game? What do you expect? What are you expecting to get out of your games?
I know what a great game, perfect game looks like, but what I did is I just accepted. It's like, well, I can't, it's not realistic for me to execute on that because I'm currently a Diamond 1 level player.
This is the other thing as well. What I said to him, I don't think of it as like a rank. This is where me and you differ.
Okay.
So I'm learning Silas right now, right? And Syndra. With my Syndra and Silas, like, I never think of it in terms of like,
I'm a Diamond level.
This is an X rank. This is an X rank. I just think this is like a mistake. I don't know what level that is.
Yeah.
But I know this isn't good.
It probably happens in every.
It will happen.
It's a good point.
When it happens, it happens. I just play. Okay, I know this is what I want to do, and this is what I need to do. What rank this gets me or doesn't get me, I don't think like that. I just think this is good Syndra gameplay. This needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
And I'm incrementally getting better. And like, I'm not worrying about my mid game yet on these champs. I'm just trying to focus on my first 12, 15 minutes, and then like I actually showed him one of my reviews of where I played Silas, and I'm like, yep, I did this, and I made these mistakes later on, but like, it didn't matter to me because my expectations is that I'm going to make mistakes and I'm taking it one step at a time. I'm just.
So you don't view yourself as, you're not attached to a rank. You're just, I'm Curtis.
Yeah.
I'm playing League of Legends. I'm playing this champion.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get better at this champion.
That's
whatever
right.
that rank I get.
Whatever that it's like if I win or lose, it's more about how I play. That's what's more important to me. And then I know that if I can play how I visualize eventually, I don't know when I get more games in, then I'll probably get higher ranked. It'll be higher ranked than I am now, but I don't know what that will be. I've never thought like I play like this at an X level, if that makes sense.
Okay. And then for me, what I think is, well, this is how I got out of that hole that Daniel's in. I had to embrace that I'm a Diamond 1 level of player. And I know what Diamond 1, because I reviewed Diamond 1.
No, but how did you do that? Because that's the problem with Daniel. He believes like he's a plat, like he's passed off because he was plat. Now he's Goal 1. Like he feel like in his mind he's regressed so far. Like he's gone so far backwards because he lost all these games in like demotion shields. So his MMR is like screwed. So he's like playing in Gold 2-3 games. He's struggling in Gold 2-3 games. But he was like high plat, right? So he's tied to this. It's very similar to you. He's tied to some X rank that he was in the past. I told him to simply put, you're only as good as your last game played, your last block. But how did you wrestle with that?
I accepted I was a Diamond 1 level player. And then I was also aware that the enemy team was making many mistakes and there was many other opportunities in the game for me to still win.
That's a good one.
And and then the next thing is getting into that mindset of what's the next best decision to make? I die, what's the next best decision? What's the next best decision? What's the next best decision? Instead of... And it's it's a distraction from like beating your confidence down.
Right, so you ask yourself, what's next in the game? What do I need to do next? And then that gets you through the game, essentially.
That gets me through the game. And then if I'm behind, then I'll be saying, how can I make this game as difficult for the enemy team to win as possible?
Yeah,
those are things that help me as well.
Yeah.
So those are like my tools.
Kobe Bryant.
Those are my tools to
Daniel, give those a go.
To get through. And then eventually, you get back.
Eventually you just get better, right?
Yep,
You're just going to get better.
Yep.
And then you'll get to the rank that you just are, in a way.
Yep.
So I just found that fascinating. That like, what do you expect yourself to? How do you like when you vocalize it? Right? It sounds ridiculous. Like when I vocalized it, like I asked him those questions, it made him realize how stupid it sounds. Right? It's like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, how can I expect it?
How can I expect this? These expectations are completely ridiculous.
I'm gold, but I'm expecting to be a challenger player. All right, Curtis, you said he plays that maybe 1 out of 20 games a great game.
Yeah.
How often would you say you play a perfect game in your eyes or a great game in your games if you were to do a ratio?
It depends. I mean, now's not a good time because I'm learning champs, but if I'm playing my main champs, like a great game, like in my mind, perfect, probably 1 in Yeah, probably like 1 in 15 or something.
Ooh,
Something like that.
Mine's 1 in 8.
Yeah, I don't play perfect
Yeah,
that much.
that's what I think about 1 in 8 games.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, it was very structured. Which I'm thinking of Rek'Sai, perfect game of Rek'Sai. Like, I can get a game in like that, but that's because sometimes I'll have like winning lanes. So it's just like easy to. I've just done this a million times.
Right,
Like,
but I
with that
think
win
the ratio
condition.
differs on many champs. Like I feel like playing a perfect game with Cassio is really hard because the skill, like there's so much.
It's probably
room.
easier with other champs.
But with Vex,
yeah.
it's easier. Like I could play a perfect game. I think with Vex, like probably 1 in 5.
1 in 5.
Like when I was in my prime with Vex and I was playing spamming Vex, I felt really confident. But with Cassio, it's way more because there's so much room for optimization mechanically.
Yeah.
You know, and like team fights and macro, like there's so much stuff I can do.
Yeah, I'd say
With
Rex,
Syndra, I've never played a perfect game with Syndra.
No, because there's so much you can
There's
do.
so
You gotta
much.
hit those E's.
Syndra is like is one of the highest skill cap champs in the entire game.
Yeah, I would say
It's
for
incredible.
Rek'Sai it would be like 1 in 8, and then for Xin Zhao probably like 1 in 15.
Yeah, it depends on the champ, how
Because-
simple they are and how
because
complicated.
I think it's more of a mechanical thing, would you say? Because Rek'Sai, it's hard. You don't really have many mechanics.
Xin Zhao has a lot of ways you can
the
play
W,
fights.
the W's is so important, right?
And the R, you
yeah.
can change fights massively. There's so many different ways you can play team fights
Yeah.
with Xin Zhao.
Yeah. So it's sort of like, I guess, options with the champion.
Yeah, more options.
Makes the
Yeah.
game more difficult to have
Yeah,
a great
100%.
game.
Yeah, Vex is very relatively straightforward comparatively to Cassio, 100%. Yeah, so for those of you out there, really try and vocalize what you expect to happen in your SoloQ games. Like when you vocalize it, it can be very humbling.
Can't have unrealistic expectations.
Last thing I did want to talk about here. Now I have mentioned this, but I want to go a bit deeper. So we've spoken a lot about intuition. Now so an analogy here. I went bowling not long ago. 10-pin bowling, whatever it is. And because I hadn't done bowling since I was a kid, I was really fascinated to see like what would happen when I go there. Like what would my level be? How hard is it? Just like with it, because we have this new way of viewing a skill nowadays. Like
Learning a skill.
like learning a skill, we have a completely different mindset.
Were you good at bowling when you were young?
I mean, Nathan, when you're young, like you don't think, you just play. Like
yeah, but did you like beat your counterparts?
I never thought of it like that. I just
Okay.
rolled the goddamn ball. I never
Yeah.
viewed anything as a competition.
Oh, it wasn't a competition.
No,
Okay.
it was just like, just have fun.
It was a social event.
Yeah, it's a social event. Drink
Okay.
some Coca-Cola, have some lollies, and go running on walls
yeah.
type thing.
Yeah.
I was more excited about the ticket. The machines.
Oh, the machine. Yeah, there's. Dude, I stacked those. Did you?
The tickets and stuff.
I got like thousands of those.
Really?
I went ham, dude.
Yeah, those are fun.
Yeah, that was fun.
Anyway, so I went bowling, and it was sort of interesting because it made me realize how different people approach picking up something that's new. So for me, I was very analytical in the approach. Like I remember thinking, okay, there's all these different balls, right? And I was like, what do these numbers mean? I'm like, oh, okay, this one's heavier than this one. Oh, interesting. So there's different weights here, and there's different size holes where you put your fingers. So I remember like spending like a while, like I kept changing my ball, like really trying to think about what would be the most optimal ball. So I'm thinking to myself, does heavier mean faster? Does it mean it'll hit more pins? Does it mean I can? But then if it's too heavy, I can't throw it fast enough. Like I was actually thinking about it because I wanted to like win, right?
So now you viewed it as a competition.
Yeah, and I wanted to get good at. I wanted to
Yeah,
be good at
yeah.
it. Like if I'm going to be here, like
Yeah.
I thought of it as just like a skill that I could maybe develop,
Yeah.
right?
Using your League of Legends philosophy.
Yeah. So like I spent a lot of time kind of thinking of it kind of as I was going through that experience. And then whereas other people there, then they still wanted to win, but they kind of just send it. They're like, pick a random ball. If it feels right, they go, and then they adapt. And then like, oh, okay, that's probably not right. It's very feel oriented. So I was reflecting on that experience and, drawing parallels between the League experience and this bowling experience. I feel like in League, a lot of people have that analytical approach where they come in and they try to problem solve everything from a very analytical perspective.
I talk about they're trying to think their way to an elo. They're trying to think their way
Right.
out of a problem, or think their way out of quote unquote their current rank. Their
Yeah,
elo.
right. So there's the very analytical approach, and then they're the people that tend to watch a lot more content,
they
maybe,
watch a
and
lot of
then
it,
less montages, more actual educational content, etc. And then you get the very feel-oriented, intuitive type learners, people that really want to apply their system one.
They just play. They're the 15
Feel.
games a day.
There are a
people.
lot of games, watch a lot of montages. They like to feel things. And this, I think, also influences the type of champions you play. They play more feel-oriented champions, like the Katarinas, the Yasuos, the Yones, the Kalis. Champs that are very mechanically expressive,
Yeah.
and you need an element of feel. And it got me thinking, that's so fascinating how people have differing approaches to how they view improving at the game. Now,
going back to your bowling experience, were the people that were playing off feel, were they doing better than you?
No.
You were doing better.
I was doing one of the best, yeah.
Yeah. And
there was one other person that was...
Did it take you a while to like ramp up?
There was one girl that was killing it.
Yeah.
But she looked like she had experience.
Oh, she had experience.
It's like her stance was so good. And I was like trying to copy her stance. I was like, I was watching her and I was like, how do I do that?
That's copying a high elo player, dude, right there.
I was like trying to observe, like, how is she so good? Like,
Yeah.
she's getting so much power more than me.
Yeah.
And just the way she was yeah. But anyway, yeah, I was probably one of the more successful ones there by far. Like, I bet someone that was way stronger than me. I thought like strength would matter, and I think it does matter. But
Not
I was
as much as you thought.
Yeah, I thought like I should have lost to this guy. Like he's like 6'5", 120 kilos. Like surely he could just, and he's super athletic. I thought he would annihilate me. But then I took a more analytical approach and got like the perfect ball size for me, and it felt right. And I really focused on my stance, like engaging my core. Like I made up all these narratives and finding out like what the most optimal way to throw this. Because I'd never watched a single thing about bowling, right? Like I had to try to figure it out myself. But I used a combination of both, is what I'm saying. I used an element of analytical approach to go in theorizing. Then I would feel how that felt, and then I would adjust. And now, tying back to League, you can't over-index on ultra feel and intuitive, and you can't over-index on pure analytical thoughts.
Thinking, yeah.
You can't over-index on using system 1. You can't over-index on using system 2. You need a combination of both. Now, the thing about League, what's super fascinating, Nathan, is that it's not clear how you should approach learning the game. Certain skills, it's very obvious that you need to be using system 1 and feel, like skateboarding. Like you got to feel it out. Like you're going to get on it, you're going to fall. You can't think your way through balance. You got to feel balance. You got to feel catching a ball. You can't read a book on how to catch a ball. You got to kind of catch a ball, hand-eye coordination. But there's other skills like mathematics and things like that. You got to be really thoughtful in your approach, be very analytical, really figure out how to break it. You can't feel your way through mathematics a lot of the time. You got to really understand it. Now, League is a game where which one do I do? Do I really think about the theory and try and understand it, or do I feel it and just play and try and feel what the damage is like? No, Nathan, you do both. There's times in the game where you got to be pure feel and muscle memory only. In your team fights, skirmishing, a lot of laning, you're engaging engagements with the enemy. Feel. You got to feel the damage. You got to feel the ranges out. You got to feel how the abilities interact. You got to feel the movement, the patterns of the enemy. It's all feel. But the lull states, Nathan, the jungle tracking, the win condition assessment,
assessing map state,
where your teammate locations are. These are things that you need to actually think.
Use your brain.
Read your brain. You need to be very logical about it and take a step back and think about things holistically. You need a combination of both. But then Nathan, the thing that's hard about League, you got to switch between the two during the game. But for a lot of people, they're not comfortable with doing that. They've never done that before. You got to switch from system 1 to system 2, system 1 to system 2, boom, 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 and have a combination of both. No wonder people who over-index in a specific style in how they approach learning struggle. If you over-index in either of them, you're screwed. Now, I've actually done a lot of research on this one. Shout out to Gifts. He sent me a lot of research papers. So Gifts works at a university starting to do a PhD, psychology, whatever it is. And he gave me, he linked me a bunch of articles relating to System 1 and System 2 thinking. And there's research that actually suggests that so this is super fascinating. At the highest level, elite athletes, they use more intuition. Because they've really developed a lot of that muscle memory.
Yeah.
So most of the complex problem solving is done through feel and intuition. The level below that, where you are, say you're not a beginner anymore, but like you're an intermediate, you're like at a decent level, like the average player that's played a bit of the game or whatever that sport or might be. They benefit more from learning and thinking analytically, because they need to make sense of what's happening, which is really interesting. So I would equate this to more like the diamond players and even the platinum players. A lot of these players, they need to be using a lot more of an analytical approach to learning. This is according to the research. Now, even lower, beginners, right? Beginners in most skills, they actually need to over-index more in feel and intuition. So it goes feel intuition at the lowest level, analytical thought in the middle, and then feel intuition again at the highest level, which actually mimics very closely how we think about League. Think about the very beginning when you're a bronze, silver, even like the beginning is a gold. It's a lot of it. You really got to get that feel and intuition up,
Get
right?
the games in, have fun.
You got to have fun, get the feel. You got to understand how damage output works and everything.
Range
Assessment, how champs interact, a lot of stuff. Then, once you start to get that down pat, you got to really start to try and make a little bit of sense of the game. Like, what's actually happening? Take a step back. What the fuck is going on, right? So gold to diamond, there's I'm not saying it's all, we're not saying you can't, again, over-index, but majority of it is now analytical.
People's mechanics, especially now, everyone's got a pretty good feel because people have been playing the game so long. Yeah, platinum and diamond players are pretty fine.
It's pretty fine. A lot of the time it is just understanding of certain concepts, isn't it? Most of the time. Then at the highest level, you get everything now. Like, you kind of know why things work. Now it goes back to
intuition
a lot of the time. How fascinating is that?
That's very interesting.
So that's apparently the research suggests that is when it comes to skill acquisition and learning and stuff like that. That's the approach.
I mean, I've got an experience with this. I mean, I have had a coach that joined SoloQ the last month or so, and he's just struggles because he tries to think his way.
Right.
I feel like I think this is a big reason why coaches can't get high elo,
and they have these mental blocks.
They hugely over-index in thinking about the game, and there's zero intuition feel at all. So I definitely have experience with that for sure. I mean, that's what I did as well. I tried to think my way out of diamond, and I needed to go back to
that's
just
so
playing
true. There's so many of these
intuition.
Coaches that make excuses as why they're not high elo, and it pisses me off. Figure it out, man. It's like, yeah, you're right. They over-index on analytical thinking. They need to feel and develop the feel and the intuition of the game. And you need that to also understand the game at a different level as well, though. If you don't have the feel, you can't coach it because you don't know how the player's thinking and how they're feeling in that moment. You need a combination of both.
I think there's certain aspects of the game you can think about. So it's sort of like mid-game macro and stuff like that. But even then, I think feel
even then you need feel.
Yeah,
what would it feel like to be in this position?
Yeah.
I think there's a whole nother level.
I agree.
To teaching anyway.
Yeah, but that's another whole subject.
That's a whole other, yeah. Well,
So that's what I've experienced that for sure. Where coaches are very difficult for me to coach in terms of getting better at the game because they are way too analytical, which obviously attracts the coaching role. People are thinking about the game and stuff. They're very,
it
very
suits their
difficult.
skill set more.
Yeah, and they hugely over-index in that, and it hugely caps them in terms of climbing the game.
So I'm actually going to make a video on this at some point, and I'm going to talk about how one can become more intuitive if they're over-indexed on the analytical side, and how one can become more analytical either way. So, yeah, I just found that absolutely fascinating. And I think it's something I need to explore more. I've got more research to do on this one because I think it's quite an in-depth topic.
I love exploring.
But, for those of you out there that feel, that resonates with you, or you feel as though that's something that, you're currently experiencing, maybe you're overly analytical or overly intuitive, because I've seen the trends in the MLA. I work with, that's why I ask all the background questions. The first thing I ask is, how long have you been playing the game? Do you review games? What champ pool do you have, and how long have you played these champs for? What I'm actually doing is I'm gathering information to get information. What type of player is this? Is this a guy who's mained Yasuo for 3 years and hasn't reviewed a single game? Or is it a guy that has played, Xerath and actually doesn't play many games? And you can actually make out very easily what type of player someone is. And then that's going to influence their learning objectives straight away.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just tell someone, you just got to play more games, and then another guy, you need to play less games. I've actually told people to play less. You need to actually now not play the second block. You need to just play that 1-3 block. And then instead of playing those 2 extra games a night, you need to then just review your games. You're going to have less time to play, but you can review your games and then start to make sense of what the fuck is happening. It's very important. Very, very important.
Fascinating stuff.
So I'll give some updates and hopefully get that video out in the next month.
All right, should we jump into Mailbag? Away we go! Welcome back for Nathan's Mailbag. Jingle, jingle, jingle song. All right, so opening up the big bag of mail today. Our first write-in is from Brian, who is a college athlete. The title of this email is My Racing Journey versus League Climb. Hi, Curtis and Nathan. Thanks so much for putting this podcast together. I found it about 4 months ago and has had a huge impact on my health, career, and of course my ranked climb. I'm writing in today to share my experience as a collegiate athlete, how it relates to my ranked journey so far, and some advice for anyone setting lofty goals to take their climb to the next level or go pro. Getting right into it, my final track season in college was turning out to be quite a standout season. In my second to last race, I had a 25-second personal record in the 5K with a time of 14:27, 14 minutes 27 seconds. This put me in striking distance of qualifying for regionals, which is made up of the top 50 5K performers. Generally, the last qualifier is around 4 minutes 10, which would require another 15-second improvement. I had 3 or 4 weeks to train before my final race where I would need to pull out another miracle. In that race, I went out to place to hit 14 minutes and 10 seconds and ended up losing steam in the last mile and practically jogging it in for a 15 flat. So then it got to 15 minutes. This of course was quite a painful experience, which I don't think I fully came to terms with and understood until today upon reflection. The 2 months leading to my standout race were exceptional for training. I remember being 100% in the zone, focusing on the details and getting the work done. I had a great training partner and a great schedule. Without a doubt, those 2 months were what gave me such an amazing race. After that race, I lost sight of the details and started dreaming about how I might be able to make it to regionals. My training for the first few weeks was still fine, but ultimately I lost focus, which would have been necessary to go to the next level. Interesting experience. In League of Legends, I've experienced the same thing countless times. After hitting a new peak rank, there always comes a time where I set a new goal or gain too much confidence and lose sight of the details. I'm currently working on getting back to Masters in the new season, and once I hit Diamond 180 LP, I became too focused on the LP and lost track of the details. However, there's always another chance in SoloQ. You can make this same mistake again and again and still one day hit your goal like I did. The lack of consequence is both a blessing and a curse. If I had come to terms with this issue earlier, or how I realized how similar my experience was in running, I may have hit Master when I was 22 rather than 25. Maybe now I will hit Grandmaster Challenger once I'm 26. Or if I don't really take this to heart and lose track of the details yet again. I might not hit that goal until I'm 30. I hope that I and everyone listening can take this lesson to heart and achieve our goals without wasting any more time, treating every game like it might be our last. I wish I could have learned this before my final track race, but I'm glad I can finally understand what went wrong and learn from it. So it sounds like he didn't make the regionals, did he? Because he had that really good race, and then he lost track of it. Because he got all excited that he was about to go to regionals. Same analogy, so close to promos.
He got complacent on the process,
Finally, for anyone aiming to go pro or hit Challenger in League, I'm sure you already know it's going to be an insanely hard journey. I think the existing BBC advice is spot on. Be young, set a time limit, focus completely on the details. However, I think that a time limit in League where you can always play one more ranked game to take one step closer to your goal is very hard to internalize. With most sports careers, there is a time limit built in. And I think this makes aiming to go pro or set lofty goals in traditional sports much less damaging.
And you can only train so much.
That's right. As well,
there's a physical element. You're just mentally, you're just physically exerted.
Yeah.
You've used everything.
But in League, it's so messy. It's like the same analogy as well is like that Xin Zhao analogy with Syndra. There's so much to do. It's like overwhelming, and you could just fuck up and get worse with the champ or something like that and lose confidence because you have so many opportunities to play 15 games a day. You can do that, right? I'm not sure the answer to this one, but I think it's important that anyone aiming for the highest levels find a way to internalize the idea that every game might be your last. I hope you enjoy my shower thoughts and hopefully they help someone. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts.
Yeah, that YouTuber that I follow, that fitness guy, that Eric Bugenhagen, he talks a lot about that. He talks about his college experience. He was like because we don't really know how the entire
scholarships and stuff, it's a
scholarship
big
and
deal.
athletics. We don't understand how it really works.
It's not like that in Australia.
But like it's like elite, like the
Yeah.
performance. Like especially, I think it was Eric came from like the wrestling background, and he talks about how he was so close to winning, he just came second.
Yeah.
And like if he said if he were to go back in time, like things would make so much more sense. Like he didn't really get the process and how to like really approach mastery in those sorts of areas. When you're younger, you don't get it. You don't get taught these lessons that he's painfully had, and you now, upon reflection later on, like it is always about your preparation. It is always about your process, and it may not seem like that at the time. It may seem like luck or genetics or many other things at play, but it really does come down to your preparation, and you don't know it until you've done it. Until you've really prepared and given your all one time. You don't know what it's like. But I think he raises a really good point in the sense that it's very easy to become detached from reality.
Especially when you get close to something.
When you get close to something, yeah. But just in general, like I think there's just a lot of noise. I think that's maybe the difference between, again, traditional sport and league, especially when it comes to a solo sport like track events or tennis. Like it's only you. Like it's all on you. There is no one else to shift blame on. Whereas league, there is a lot of other variables at play. There's 4 other people.
There's a lot of convenience.
There's a lot of scapegoats that you can use. And I think that's one of the hardest things about league is that there's many reasons why you shouldn't take responsibility or don't have to take responsibility. And the other thing you said was spot on, where you might even play poorly and still win. Whereas if you run poorly, you're not going to get a good time. Like there's an input and there's an output.
Right, yeah.
But in league, there's an input, but the output can get very distorted depending on the way the game plays out.
And that's why we say win streaks and victories can sometimes be really dangerous in terms of like building, you think you're hot shit and then
it goes both ways. If you gain a lot of confidence from win streaks, means you're going to lose a lot of confidence from loss streaks. But I think, the message is really good. It really is about the small details. That's what's going to get you to where you need to be. No matter how unsexy it is, right? It's not sexy at all, and it's miserable a lot of the time. And that is the most consistent way to get there. That's the only really way to get there in a replicable fashion. And it'd be great if he gave more advice about how he's been able to kind of zoom out a little bit, how he's been able to kind of detach and realize this, because it seems like he said this is shower thoughts. That's so fascinating, right? Because most of your reflection for a lot of people is going to be done. It's going to be in the shower when you're not really preoccupied with anything else, right?
I guess that goes back to what we talked about. The change in the review process is giving yourself a chance to reflect.
Reflection just seems to be a common recurring trend. That's actually one thing that me having my injury has allowed me to do. It's allowed me to kind of take a step back and really observe how I was doing certain things wrong and the importance of physical health and these other areas. But most of the time we're just on the defense, aren't we, Nathan? Like in life, you're just on the defense. You're just reacting to things that are happening around you. It's very easy to get caught up in the flow of things, like how time's just like a river and you're just flowing down the river and you don't really know what the hell's going on.
Suddenly you're 35 years old and you're like, fuck, what happened there?
Yeah, pretty much. So I think it's a really important message, and hopefully people can learn from this and gain a little bit of inspiration. Hopefully he might have saved some other people going down that rabbit hole right now. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
I just love that there's always a comparison in a traditional sports league. SoloQ journey. Doing shit that's hard.
Process.
I love doing
Details.
stuff that's hard. All right, this next email is from Katsuuki. We've had him before,
I think we've
right?
had him before, right?
That's why I say it that name, because I know Katsuuki. All right, the title of this email is League Worth It? Hi, Cursor Nathan. I've recently given up on becoming a pro player. The decision has lowered my drive and care for the game. I don't really see the point of grinding the game if it won't be your full-time job. We know that League has a lot to offer and to learn from and is a great tool to improve your life, but so does going to the gym, building a business, making art, reading, learning new skills, having a fulfilling social life, playing a sport. And these activities, in my opinion, don't nearly have as many downsides as League does. Why would one choose League over those if League isn't the end goal?
That's a great question. He's right. There are many other endeavors. League is just one of them. League is one of them. You can get very similar learnings from many other traditional hard things. Anything that's hard. Pursuing some crazy physique in the gym, pursuing some level of strength in the gym, playing tennis, playing soccer, football, anything that's difficult, any competitive endeavor, you will get very similar. You can have a very similar experience if you take it and a very serious approach to it. And
there's like these YouTube channels of like people that like make swords and stuff. They're blacksmiths, like even something like that.
Anything that's hard.
Yeah.
As long as it's a challenge, anything that's hard, you're going to get the same learning. League just happens to be something that we're passionate about and we really enjoy, and a lot of people enjoy. And it's fun, and it's something we enjoy, and it's really hard. Like, it's extremely hard, and it's mentally grows you mentally. Now, again, we're not saying everyone needs to play League. It's for the people that are currently interested in League.
I guess is it
getting the most from it.
Is it worth it for you? That's what the question would be.
Yeah, is it worth it for you? It's like, well, that's on you, really, if you enjoy the game enough. If you're miserable playing the game, you don't want to use League as the medium to improve yourself, that's completely fine. There's many other things you can do. But I wouldn't say all of them are the same. The social thing, no. The art thing, no. It has to be competitive and it has to be difficult.
I mean, art can be.
Art can be, but I think the competition is important.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to...
art competition stuff, isn't there?
Yeah, but I don't think that's... I mean, art competition, I don't think that's the same, really.
Okay,
it's not like you go to... I'm like, oh, I'm going to draw so well here to beat that guy. I don't think that's the way
it's more expressing yourself.
Yeah, it's more expression.
Okay.
I think there's an element of it that you get, but I think the competition specific part is great. There's actually... I know for men specifically, there's research suggests that competition is incredibly healthy for men from like a biological perspective. It helps induce certain hormones in your body, testosterone. Like, it increases your testosterone significantly. I watched some Andrew Huberman podcast where he spoke about how competition for men, it increases, it's like a natural, I don't know what the word is, natural way of increasing your testosterone. There's many, many health benefits of competition for men. And I'm assuming it's for women. In this case, I just knew the video watch was for men, but yeah, for men specifically, I know that's the case. So that's why I think as long as it's something that's competitive and hard and forces you to push yourself and learn and grow, it can be anything, man.
Yeah. Yeah, competitions is fantastic. Someone that's like trying to take your spot, trying to beat you, and you have to like figure out there's something there natural to that. Yeah. I love it. I love the competition. Like, of these,
that's why, like, those even martial arts and stuff like that, it's all the same thing.
I mean, a lot of these that you listed, playing sport, that's only one competition. Going to the gym, I guess there's a competition with yourself, but
it's not as much. Like, I think it is still really good.
Yeah,
but I think that there will be elements missing there.
If you're going to the gym to compete, if you're like doing bodybuilding or something, that's
powerlifting competition. Yeah, I think that'd be good.
Yeah, social life, definitely not. No. That's separate.
That's all separate.
Learning new skills.
I think art and that stuff, that's all separate in my opinion.
Learning new skills, it's like, learning new skills to compete, or just learning new skills to, like, learning language.
Like, again, there's value you can get from doing that, but there's levels to it. I think that being something that's extremely hard and competitive is the goal, is the ideal, I think, for growth mentally.
Yeah. I mean, learning a language is definitely fucking hard.
Yeah, it's really hard, but there's no competition element.
So, yeah, I mean, you got to, figure out for you, is it worth it for you? I mean, obviously you gave up becoming a pro player. Props to you for figuring that out.
Yeah, I mean, respect. That's not an easy decision to come to, man.
And if you don't care that much about the game, I mean, if I wasn't doing what I'm doing right now, I'd still be playing League.
Me too.
It's just great. It's the best game in the world in my eyes.
Again, we're only doing this because we love the game.
That's right. Wouldn't be here
if you don't love the game. You shouldn't be playing the game.
Yeah. All right. Next question here is from Eric. The title of this email is Confusion for New Players. Hey, boys. I wrote in last time about the 3 block. This take, though, is one I haven't heard before, and it is one of the few things that I hate most about the game nowadays. When I started playing in Season 5, the game was all about either having fun in normal games or having a good rank. Since then, I've had many friends that are fairly new to the game, and they always focus on the wrong kinds of things. Back when I started, you just wanted to get the highest rank possible and own all champions. Right now, at least in my experience, players focus way too much on mastery level and the account level in general. They go on Poro Fest site in the loading screen and see the guy on the enemy team is level 400, but he's silver 3. They completely ignore this rank and say to me, okay, you have to carry, I can't win lane against this no-life player anyway. I always explain that this narrative that if someone has a high level or a lot of mastery points, there's nothing about their skill, but they just don't care. I think all of this stuff like mastery points, player level, loot boxes has shifted the focus of newer players and made it harder to break the ceiling of gold for most. I imagine you guys don't really play normals that much, but every game I play with my friend group or any new player really, they always have this skewed view of the game and player skill. They just give up mentally if someone is extremely high level, even though to me that indicates that they are a worse player since they stayed in, let's say, silver for 100 plus levels. I know a lot of new players and all they care about is mastery level and player level or Porofessor stats. Meanwhile, they are bronze the entire season and don't understand why. I just think Riot systems outside of the gameplay have made it really appealing to stay in low elo. Would love to hear your thoughts on this. It's an interesting question.
Yeah, I've never heard about this. We're very detached from that.
Yeah, because
we don't really see that.
Don't even know what level my accounts are.
We get asked that all the time. What
master level? No idea.
Someone actually looked at there's like an app or a website. You can search what your mastery levels are on your champs. Mine is so low.
Mine will be low, yeah.
Ours, both of us, you did yours as well. Ours are really low.
Yeah.
Like you would look at ours from a mastery perspective, you think that we're garbage according to the mastery level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree though. If I saw like a 1 trillion level mastery point and they're in silver, whatever it is,
well, they have no fundamentals.
I mean, they're terrible.
Yeah.
You know, like if anything, they're worse. Like I would, if there's someone that has less mastery points and they're at that rank, that suggests that maybe they're actually got their shit together and they're on the way up. I wouldn't even think about it though. Like I think it's a lot of noise.
So I want to approach the question from the last thing you said, like Riot's system outside of the gameplay made it really appealing to stay low elo. I guess it's maybe smart, like it's catering to a separate audience.
It's for more casual people that are more focused on the champ mastery.
They can like focus on something.
Yeah, like they get other metrics of enjoyment or success
that you can
chase. It's like it's not just the rank, it's the levels, it's the because you get cool borders and stuff for having high level account.
Do you really?
I think, or like you get rewards, maybe.
And all that loot stuff and collecting.
Yeah, mastery. You get like the badges and stuff.
Do you like go in with your orange essence? Do you do that stuff?
No, I open the chest though for skins.
Okay.
The boxes.
And then do you like get a skin from it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I swear to God, I've got like thousands of things.
I've
never done it,
but I don't. The skin ones I do.
Wait, do you buy them with orange essence? How do you get skins?
No, so the way it works is like you
need shards.
You get like a key, and so you open the box.
Yeah.
And you get like a skin like token, right? And then you can get the skin with orange essence by unlocking that token.
Okay.
Or you can combine all three of them together and you just get a skin.
Oh, but it's random.
It's a random one.
Okay.
I do that. I just like do a random one.
You have lots of skins on your account.
Yeah, I have a lot of random skins.
Really?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Like none of my champs. None of my champs.
I should maybe do that, dude.
Yeah,
skins are pretty cool.
But I think the Riot, I think Riot, it's good for them to do that.
I agree. Yeah.
I think it caters to different audiences. And maybe your friends, I think they're just casual players.
Yeah,
like that's
right.
okay.
Yeah.
I think as well, it seems like maybe this guy, what's his name? Eric, right?
Yeah.
He has a different approach to the game. Maybe he's coming more from like, he wants to get more out of the game.
He listens to this podcast, right?
If you're listening to this podcast, yeah, you probably want to get more out of the game than it being a casual, mindless game. And that's okay. You just got to come to terms with that. Everyone has a different journey and they don't want to get the same thing out of the game. Like, you're right. Back in the day, it was more simple than that. It was either you're playing to get your champs and just play for fun, or you're getting a high rank.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's different journeys that people can go down now, and I think you just got to evolve with the times, and it's not as simple. I mean, back in the day, everything seems appealing in the past, doesn't it?
That's true.
Like, no matter what it is, nostalgia just makes everything seem better.
Yeah.
Like that game I played when I was 10 years
Back
old, it
in
was
my
so
day.
good, and like everything always seems better in retrospect, but it's just not. You look at it and then you go back, and if you wish that if that was the reality now, it would be worse. So I think just accept that your friends have a different journey. They don't want the same thing out of the game than you, and the whole thing about like,
do you think Riot? So he's saying here that they encourage people to be low elo.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think that's at all. I think that's a weird little.
I think those people would still, yeah.
Those people that are scared to verse someone with high mastery level, they're not competitors.
Yeah.
they're not going to ever compete. They're just low level players. Like they're like the they're just like just low level players.
They're like I know there's a whole community. They're like they look to get mastery on every champion, the highest thing.
Right.
They're sort of like the MMO type grind players.
Yeah.
You know?
They're like the PvE.
PvE,
They're like the PvE players of MMO, and then there's the serious PvP or the high end raiders. Like
the high end PvEs. Yeah.
There's like the high end players, and there's just the casual, like just do a little bit of grinding here and there. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. They just have a different approach to the game.
Yeah, I mean, right when it sells skins, right, they want people playing for different
exactly.
reasons. So
spot on.
Yeah,
I think it makes sense from Riot's perspective, but it's it's good to think about. It's good to be aware of why, what sort of behavior you're seeing and make sense of it. But I do think that is even detrimental though. That whole thing going back, one last thing. If your friend is playing for fun and they're scared of versing someone, that doesn't seem very fun to me. Like, they should delete Porofessor. If you're not playing to climb, delete. What's the purpose of Porofessor? Like,
what are you breaking?
Like, what are you trying to look at? Like, just play. Just play. I think that you should be. I mean, I can't stand Porofessor, dude.
Yeah.
Whenever I see people, if I do a VOD review and someone has that. Oh, man.
So what do they have? What is it? It has the CS numbers stuff,
it comes up with all the stats, like their rank.
Oh, really?
Like all this bullshit. Like,
so you like look at someone else?
Yeah, these people, like, I've had them on the MLA, I roast them, I said delete this straight away.
Really?
Yeah, all the time.
Interesting.
Not all the time. I would say 1 in every 10 clients.
Yeah.
But they disappears. They don't use it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we talk about stats. We don't use stats to improve ourselves or our clients. We just don't know how they're used right now.
Well, you can use it, but again, it's before the game stats. They're not useful. There are ways you can use stats after to see trends and things like that. But before that game, there's nothing you're going to need to know.
No.
Apart from runes, that's it. You see it.
Yeah. All right, next question here is from Don. The title of this email is How to Reinvent My Journey. Hello, boys. I am Picasso. I'm a huge fan of your philosophy concerning League and life, at least what I've observed from the podcast. I have a question for you. I understand that you do not coach players below gold. I even understand why. Players below gold are missing so many fundamentals to the point that coaching wouldn't make a significant impact on that person's approach to the game. I'm a Silver 4 player. I started playing in 2020 and have played well over 3,000 games since. My first season, I was quite satisfied with just not being stuck in bronze. However, in Season 11, I proposed myself to reach gold. I was unfortunately held back by my bad habits and overall lack of game understanding. I will constantly roll swap / change my pool. This season, I plan on reinventing my journey. I found your podcast and it helped me have a much healthier relationship with the game. I've been following your process of 3 blocks VOD review and dealing with my mental instead of blaming other people. It's helped me a lot. I'm asking what would be a good list of fundamentals to work on in my review process and in my games. For context, I'm a jungle main. I queue as mid-secondary. My champ pool consists of Diana, Kindred, and Nocturne. I have Mastery 7, all 3 of these champs, and although I understand this is irrelevant, since you don't know me personally or my specific issues, I want to clarify that I have a high win rate on my account, 70%, and high win rates on my 3 champs. I don't care much about instantly climbing to gold, but I do want to notice myself playing at a higher level. I would also love to reach a point where I could join Nathan's Jungle Academy. Appreciate any input. So obviously there's a bit of a jungle question here. Diana, Kindred, and Nocturne. So with Diana and Nocturne, I'll be looking at making sure you're efficiently farming. I always say this, like even when I get my gold clients, jungling, fundamentals, everything starts with what's a good gank and what's a bad gank. If you know what is a bad gank, you know to like hit your camps or just like reset or something. And it sort of gives you an amazing structure to your gameplay. Everything will flow on from that. I always recommend that to like lower elo players. So, learning first what's a good gank and what's a bad gank. And that's, I mean, if you want to get more specific, that's looking at like the resources and learning the champ matchups. Like, do I have a Yuumi against like a Thresh Draven? Like, even if they're pushed up, they can 2v3 you. And that will take from experience. So really look into that. Those are fundamentals. And jungle tracking, that's really important as well. And just do it for the early game. Those are the only 2 things I would focus on, really. And then other than that, then it's just champ mastery. champ mastery, really important, and those two fundamentals. So that's what I'll be looking for. That's pretty simple. Anything to add, Curtis?
I think you covered it. I mean, I would say really holistically, just look at your deaths.
And look at death, obviously. What we
Just
talk
look at your
about.
deaths.
Yeah.
And then
There you
try
go.
and just try and observe. Again, be very open minded. Just be very observant. Look at your deaths. By the sounds of things, it seems like he's on the way up though. It seems like he's going to be goal 4 relatively soon. From what I can get from that, it seems like he's on the right
Sounds
track.
like, good win rate, all that sort of stuff.
But yeah, it's really hard for us to get too detailed without seeing what's going on though.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. You would have to get specific. So that's some general advice for you, which I think will help. All right, we'll do one more question here, if I can find it. Where did it go? Right, we're struggling here. We are struggling. Oh, here we go. All right, this is from Leo, who is a former SoloQ member. Title of this email is I am concerned. Hello, Nathan Rippy Mott and Coach Sword Curtis. What does that mean?
Maybe meant to say sharp. Maybe meant.
Yeah, it's sharp, not sword, Mr. Leo. Got to go back on the esports wiki and look that one up. My name is Leo. I'm currently around 500 LP Grandmasters on EU West, and I was in Nathan's SoloQ many times. Let's just say we've had some issues with Leo. Okay.
All right.
So we'll get into that. That's probably maybe an answer to this question.
Okay.
I also listen to every BBC episode, Poggers. Recently, I was unfairly 14-day banned on my main for Intim when I wasn't. After this, I decided it was time to get better at mid lane. I made a smurf and kept my champ pool to 2, Silas and Cassidy. And in 10 days, I played around 70 games and got stuck at Silver 2 with a 48% win rate. This concerned me a lot because I expected to be at least Diamond on mid lane, but I'm struggling in Silver as a 500 LP jungler on EU West. I asked my friend on why this is so, and he said it's because I abuse farming junglers that have no mid lane mechanics. Is this truly so? Should I be concerned? How do I get better at mid lane? I watch Coach Curtis Silas guide and stuff, but I'm still stuck at Silver and it's hurting my ego a lot. I want to get your first initial perspective, Curtis, because I know this guy, so I have a good idea of why this is going to...
Well, this is hard. It's really hard for me to say without knowing his...
Yeah. Well, what questions would you be asking? Ask me some questions. I'll answer them for you.
Okay. Well, look, the first thing whenever I hear this sort of thing is like, does he actually want to do it? Because he's coming from jungle, like, it seems like he's just wasting time.
Well, he said he did this because he was banned for 14 days.
So, like, that's not a good reason. Like, climbing and learning a new role is not easy. Like, it requires a lot of time and a lot of effort. The first thing I would say is, like, do you actually care? Like, he's probably just sending it, playing and not really caring about deaths. Like, he's like, I'm assuming anyway. So I think the first question I would say is, like, are you going to commit to this? Because otherwise, just take a 14-day off from the game, honestly. Like, or play on a second jungle account. Like, I just feel like learning a whole new role is kind of a waste of time. So that's the first thing I'd maybe ask him about. The second thing I would say, well, you shouldn't have any expectations about where you're at. You just got to observe. You got to be completely open-minded and curious. Whether you're a gold mid laner, platinum, diamond, master, who knows? You just got to play and focus on champ mastery and get those games in. And then the third thing I would say is, again, like you probably have a very particular skill set. I mean, what was his champ pool when he climbed?
He plays Diana. And what else did he play? And Hecarim.
Okay. Yeah, like he's probably fine. He's probably got a decent game understanding, so just slow it down.
And Eve as well.
Like, just... I mean, look. I think it's highly unlikely he's struggling in Silver. I think that's the first thing.
If he was trying.
If he was trying. Yeah. I think it's highly unlikely. No, I think he's just playing for fun.
Yeah.
That's the vibe I get. He's playing for fun. He's playing a bunch of games. He's kind of disrespecting the game completely. And I guarantee you he's not playing off spikes. He's not valuing his farm. He's not thinking about optimal wave states. He's just literally... I'm Silas. I'm gonna press Q on the wave and on the enemy, and then I'm gonna go in at level 3 and I'm gonna die.
He takes his ease every time.
He's ease every time. He's not thinking. He's not respecting the game. That's it. Simple. And he's probably also not reviewing his key deaths. Like if you actually look at it.
So he has a struggle. He struggles to review even he
Right.
doesn't really get the review thing still.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
even on his main account.
Got you.
We've had some issues there. So he's definitely not reviewing those games.
Well, the thing as well, what's going to be very difficult for him is
Yeah.
that jungle is a role where you have complete and utter control over the game. First, 5-6 minutes. Like, it's all on you. Like, junglers dictate the game. As mid, especially when you're playing the champs that you're playing, you do nothing. You're playing Silas as weak-ass early game champion. Spike's hardcore off, need level 7. You need, 3 points in Q or 3 points W. You need your Lost Chapter. You need items and you need levels. Kassadin, same thing. You need items and you need levels. And it's all about slowing it down, really valuing your farm, playing off your power spikes, playing off your levels, like the Kassadin level 11 or level 9 and Silas level 9, level 7, Lost Chapters and Tier 2 boots and your level 6 on Kassadin. Things like that. He's probably not tying it back to Champ Mastery. He's not approaching it seriously. I think that's as simple as that. If you actually ask him as well, what got him the success that he got on his main account, with his main champs? Champ Mastery. He probably had a lot of Champ Mastery on Heckroom and Dino and Evelyn,
Eve, yeah.
and then that's what got him the results.
That's right.
It's not Mechanics Max that got him the results.
Or game understanding.
He has to have some game understanding.
Yeah.
You have to have a lot of game understanding to be 500 LP in EU. He's EU, right?
Yeah, EU.
You got to have.
I just checked. He's like 700 now.
Right. You got to have amazing. You got to have really solid game understanding to get 700. Dude.
Yeah.
EU 700 LP. That's hard. That's hard as fuck. So that's what I would say. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah. I would say, Leo's very young, and I would say
How old is he?
I think he's like 16, 17.
Right.
And when I read that email, I definitely, he says that it is hurting his ego, because, and his friends telling him, you have no understanding of the game because you just abuse these champions, right? So I think I like what you said there. This is going to be a hard thing for Leo, and I've said, and this will come with his older.
Yeah, he's so young, man.
You're always going to get a big ego when you're young, and you get that.
Can I interject here one thing about ego?
Yeah.
Everything is ego.
Yeah.
So
okay, here we go.
I watched a video about that Eric guy, and someone was critiquing him about some heavy lift this guy did. He said, "Oh yeah, these ego lifts, aren't they really dangerous? You're just ego lifting." And what he said, I think I was so fascinating. He said, anything that's hard, the ego is involved. Everything is an ego. Every lift, if you're trying really hard, everything's an ego lift. If you don't really think highly of yourself,
you believe in yourself,
you don't have an ego, you're not going to be able to do anything that's really hard. And he says, the only people that would say that are the people that haven't ever done anything that's really hard. And it made me think, to climb really high in League, we critique, and it's, this is going to be contradicting some of the things we've said in the past.
Yeah.
You do have to have an ego. We talk about drop your ego. In a way, it's more like manage your ego.
Yeah.
You can't drop your ego.
You have realistic expectations.
You got to always have an ego.
Yeah.
So your ego has to be large, and you have to really have kind of sometimes borderline. Sometimes you have to be borderline delusional about what you can achieve in order to achieve it. You got to really believe that you're a challenger player to play at a challenger level. You have to believe that you can be a challenger player to get challenger. You got to have an ego. You got to have a chip on your shoulder. Every game you play is your ego's involved. So my mindset's actually shifted a bit with ego in the sense that I think it has a place in high performance. And there's a fine line between ego and you can't use ego for everything because then you're going to be delusional and injure yourself in lifting, or you're not going to get into the review, or things like that. But it's good in a way to have an ego. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it has a place.
It's got tied with belief, right?
Yeah, it's tied with belief and confidence. It's in there somewhere. It's a
there,
whirlwind of.
And you don't want to over-index on, because confidence, and that comes from preparation, right?
Right. Yeah.
But there's not really ego.
Yeah, but you can have a large ego because you've put in the work.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. Yeah, you look at people like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant.
Right,
sure,
they have an ego. Yeah. They should have an ego.
Yeah, they fucking work hard.
They work hard and they put in the work and they have that champ mastery and have the
I
mastery.
mean, for you, Leo, you haven't worked hard on mid lane and Silas and Cassidy. So what's your expectation?
It's so simple.
It's simple.
Yeah, it's so simple. You put in the work, you get the results. If you don't put in the work, you won't get the results.
So I wouldn't. You says you would be concerned. No, it would make sense.
No, it makes sense. Everything makes sense.
Yeah.
Have you played a lot of those champs and really done your research and understand how they work? Probably not.
And are you playing mid lane just because you're on a 14-man ban, or you actually want to learn the role?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he should be spending time grinding Lee Sin or Rek'Sai in gold and silver. That's what he should, because he's probably going to struggle with Lee Sin in gold from the sounds of things, the way he's making it out to be.
Potentially,
Right?
yeah.
Why doesn't he just play junglers and
Yeah.
get beaten by gold junglers with Lee Sin and Italy and Rek'Sai? Right? If he really wants to get value out of his journey.
I think there's value in learning another role.
Yeah, but I agree, but do it seriously then.
Yeah, do it seriously.
Right? So either you're going to commit to mid or
Yeah.
commit to a second role and do
Yeah.
it properly, or you're going to might as well just play jungle then and, play your main role. It's one or the other.
Yep. All right. Well, that's it for this episode, everyone. Good work. Let's keep on improving. Book club. We're reading Principles by Ray Dalio this month. If you want to join,
Yep.
We're just starting that. We finished what's the
Miyamoto Musashi.
Miyamoto Musashi, the 5 Rings. The discussion on that is tomorrow. Anything else, Curtis, to wrap up?
That's it.
All right. Good work, everyone. We'll see you on the Rift.